Hey everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Enterprise, Season 3, Episode 19, Damage. So, I'm trying to remain calm. I actually had to kind of sit down and breathe and, have a drink. This is potentially the worst episode of Star Trek I've ever seen. It infuriated me in many different ways. So, and I'm still kind of processing it. So who knows? Maybe after I go to bed, have a night's sleep, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, you know what? That was actually pretty good. I get it now. As of right now, which is kind of the point of this, is these knee-jerk initial reactions. That's why I'm doing these videos. So first of all, it started out with the previously on Enterprise, and we see T'Pol crying, and I brought that up in my last review. It bothered me that she was crying. I mean, we never saw Spock cry, we never saw Tuvok cry, stuff like that. So, but it's previously on Enterprise, and it actually showed the clip of the zombie Vulcans, and I was like, oh, you know what? I actually did kind of forget about them. And now it's one of those where you have the previously on and it actually spoils the twist. It annoyed me she was crying, and then they were like, hey, remember that drug? And now I know from the beginning it's going to be a part of this episode and it's going to tie together. And I was like, okay, so you did trick me 100%. I'll admit that. Don't spoil it in the previously on. Just let it go. So anyways, that was super annoying. I almost did this episode and the last episode together as a two-parter. I'm glad I didn't because of how much this episode pissed me off. I did like the aquatics, I'm not gonna lie. So they had to return Archer instantly, otherwise it would have been a two-part episode. But boom, right away he's returned. And the whole the aquatics, for one, they're kind of my favorite species. I like how they basically speak whale, and it could be a shout out to the voyage home, I don't know. But then the scene where Archer's like, where am I? And then they just knock him the fuck out. They're they don't even answer him. They're just bye-bye. And they just kick him back out. I was like, that's great. We learned 14 people died and 3 were unaccounted for. So 17 people died, which is pretty substantial, especially he only had a crew of 80-something people. So an 1/8 of them are now gone. Maybe a 7th of them. So poof, they're gone. The whole scene of T'Pol and Trip in the shower, I was like, that was super, unnecessary, but, T'Pol is just eye candy for this series. I don't buy her as a Vulcan, I don't like her character. I'm sure the actress is great, don't get me wrong there, but she is just something to make the fanboys horny. That's all she is. And the whole shower scene kind of proved it. And her being a zombie, I was like, okay, there it goes. So we'll go with that subplot first before I get into the big stuff. Her, evidently she has a drug addiction to the Trillium, I think is what it was called. That's the stuff that they could have put on the hull, but they didn't because, Vulcans are basically allergic to it and they become zombies. And so she's actually been, using it little by little, trying to build up a tolerance. And it's been giving her emotions and she likes it and she's addicted to it now. And I'm like, why is this a thing? You forced an AIDS episode on us with her, with the assault and stuff. This could have been a much better representation of her, with a drug use episode or something like that. But no, you fucked up the first episode, so you fucked up the second episode. Really annoying. And then poor Phlox is just yeah, you're gonna have withdrawals in a few days. And it's awful. So, already super annoyed by the subplot. Now let's get into the main plot. So, first of all, Casey Briggs makes an appearance. Fantastic actor, played Damar in Deep Space Nine. Roxanne's ex-husband, the actress that plays B'Elanna, great actor, makes an appearance as a different alien. Didn't even recognize him. It was the voice that kind of tipped me off. Anyway, we have seen captains do questionable things throughout all of Star Trek. I mean, you go back to Kirk, it was every other episode. Picard, I'm sure had something, but I honestly can't come up with anything right off the top of my head. Cisco is probably the most famous, so I'll come back to that one. And then Janeway made a lot of questionable decisions. Like every other episode, was like oh, we can't trade technology. Oh, we'll give you this if you help us get home type situations. Tuvix is the big one that most people go to about like, was she right or was she wrong? That aside, Cisco made the most questionable decisions. Most notably, I think, what is it, the Pale Moonlight, where he goes to Garrick to help get information and set stuff up, and Garrick's like, oh no, I'll take care of this. Kills a bunch of people, and Cisco's like, what are you doing? That's not what I wanted. And Garrick's like, you came to me because you know I would do it. You knew what I was going to do. Like, really, really dark stuff like that. And then the whole scene at the end where Cisco's like, you have to ask yourself, can you live with it? And I can live with it. I can live with it. I can live with it. And it's just him repeating it over and over again because he can't. And he's trying, if you say it enough times, he might be able to trick himself into believing it. So, stuff like that. Amazing. Fantastic. This episode is not that episode where Archer comes in contact with a species and is like, hey, my ship was just blown to hell and we need a warp coil. And this guy's like, I'm sorry, we have one warp coil, and if we give it to you, it'll take us 3 years to get home. I can't do that. Boil it all the way down to the end, Archer fucking steals it. He attacks the ship, shoots it, and steals their warp coil, and he's like, don't worry, we gave you food, and beams the fuck out of there. Like, it is the worst thing I have ever seen. And T'Pol questions him, Trip questions him, Malcolm questions him. Everybody's like, this isn't right. And it's just one more reason why Archer is my least favorite captain. Now, I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm only on episode 19 out of 24. So, I mean, he's already promised the whole Western, cowboy planet that he would come back for them. Maybe he comes back for these people and drops a warp coil off on them. Who knows? But as of this episode, I'm almost done with it completely. I'm ready to shut it down and just call it a lost cause and move along to the next one. Because it's so bad. And there's no way any captain would do this. It's so terrible. So, I'm getting all worked up again. I'm sorry. So, for those who have seen it, what did you guys think about, T'Pol's drug use? What did you think about Archer's, questionable actions? Go ahead, let me know. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for subscribing. And I will see you guys next time for Forgotten.